Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hakuouki Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. We are on Hajime Saito's route, and we are having a bit of an argument with him, trying to say he needs to put aside his foolish pride and just do the fury thing, stay awake at night, sleep during the day. But nope, he's got his foolish pride and he's sticking it out. Let's see if we can talk some sense into him or not. You can just sit back, relax, and let me read you a story. He turned and glared at me.
If I sleep the day away, then who's here to protect you?
What?
If the demon were to come back and take you, I was asleep would not be an acceptable explanation for my failure. Everyone else is out, therefore, I stay awake so that I can keep watch. That's all. Is that a problem?
No, it's not a problem, it's just... You mean that you're forcing yourself to stay awake every day just to protect me? He gave me the same flat, unblinking look I'd seen so many times before, whenever I'd asked what he thought to be an obvious question.
The commander has given me an order. I'm only doing my job.
That's no...
I am a soldier. I follow my orders. You needn't worry yourself about it.
His voice said that was the end of the conversation, and he fell accordingly silent and returned to his ink. I wasn't sure what to say, so I simply sat there for a few moments, staring at his back before I returned to my work. Later that night, I waited until it was time for Heisuke to wake up, then went to find him.
Ugh. Morning. Well, I guess technically it's not really morning.
Oh, Heisuke, I wanted to ask you something. Are you busy?
Oh no, not really. What's up?
Do you think maybe we could go talk outside? I don't want anyone to hear us.
What is it you wanted to talk about?
Well, ever since you became a Fury, how hard is it to, move around during the day?
Huh? Oh, you're talking about Hajime, aren't you?
I nodded. Yes, he's been acting like nothing's happened. He'd never say it, but it looks like he's in a lot of pain. And, I wanted to tell him what happened that afternoon, but I wasn't sure how to put it into words. How did you talk about something like that?
Did he say he wanted to drink blood?
I kept my mouth shut, but the look on my face must have told him.
Okay, I get it now. Man, I knew it. I thought it was weird that he wasn't getting the bloodlust yet, especially with how much time he spends up during the day.
What should I do? Should I make him drink blood? Heisuke seemed reluctant to answer. After all, to answer it would only serve to remind him that he was no longer truly human. I didn't want to make him do anything he didn't want to do, but Heisuke was the only person I could talk to about Saito.
Well, to be honest with you, it'll be easier for him if he just drinks some blood.
That wasn't the answer I'd hoped for. What was I to do then? He would be in pain unless he drank blood, so if I could get him to drink, he would feel better. But was that what Saito really wanted? Wouldn't he rather try and remember what it was like to be a human when he didn't feel compelled to drink human blood? Heisuke seemed to have read my mind because he reached into one of his sleeves and pulled out a small packet.
Here, Chizuru, take this.
What is it?
Dr. Matsumoto made this, based off some of the work Kodo left behind. Taking this suppresses the bloodlust for a while.
Really? But why would Dr. Matsumoto do that? Everything I heard from him suggested that he was adamantly against the creation and use of Furies.
Well, he still doesn't like making people into Furies, but he's a doctor. He said he couldn't stand to see people suffering if he could do something about it.
Oh. I took the medicine Heisuke had given me and tucked it into my sleeve. So, I should give him this when he starts to have an, episode?
Yeah. The stronger they get, though, the less the medicine will do for him. Just keep it in mind that it's only a stopgap. It won't work forever.
Right, got it. I think this'll help, thank you.
Alright, well, gotta run some errands. I'll catch you later.
He turned and began to walk off, then stopped as if he'd suddenly remembered something.
Oh, yeah. Can you look out for Hajime?
Always, of course. What do you mean?
San and I, we've got direction. We know what we want to do, and we know what we've got to do to get there. But Hajime's not like that. I've got a feeling he'll work himself into an early grave before he even realizes there's anything wrong with him.
Yeah, you're right. Heisuke nodded, confident that I understood, and then headed back into the building. Now what he'd said had made sense to me. It wasn't easy to explain, but Saito was different from the other warriors. The Shinsengumi always came first for him, even before his own life. If Hijikata had told him to jump into a bonfire, he would have done it immediately, no questions asked. Obedience was a valuable trait in a soldier, to be sure, but it was painful to watch him push his own life aside in favor of his duty. But the most painful thought of all was that Saito had become a fury to protect me. It felt like it was my responsibility to ease his pain. Heisuke mentioned documents my father had left behind had allowed Dr. Matsumoto to create his medicine. Perhaps if I went back to my old house, I might find something else useful. I decided to go and look the next day.
Are you taking anybody with you?
Oh no, we snuck off alone, not a wise decision. That was how I found myself the next afternoon on my way to the home I hadn't seen in years. No one had been there in a long time, and the yard was a mess. If he'd left behind anything about Furies or the Water of Life, then it would be in his room. I stopped. There was someone else here.
Is it Kazama?
Was it a thief? Or is it my dad? I held my breath and tried to get a better look.
Who's there?
I recognized the voice, but I couldn't. No, there was no way I could mistake that voice. Father, is that you? My chest felt tight. The shape in the back of the room stiffened, then slowly turned and walked toward me. As he stepped into the light, my doubts melted away.
Chizuru, it's been a long time. You've grown.
There was my father. Father! I ran to him and we embraced. His clothes smelled faintly of chemicals. I'd smelled the same thing many times as a child.
Show me your face. I go away for a little while and suddenly you've turned into a woman.
Oh! My heart swelled in my chest and tears leapt into my eyes. His worn hands stroked my hair gently. It felt as if all the time we'd spent apart just melted away. What have you been doing since you left for Kyoto? His hand stopped. He smiled, a familiar smile.
I've been in hiding with... Well, never mind that. Tell me about you. What have you been doing?
I poured out everything that had happened to me since I'd arrived in Kyoto. How I'd met the Shinsengumi and they'd agreed to look after me, and how we'd lost the war in Kyoto and left to take refuge in Edo.
I see. It sounds like you've gone through a lot.
Oh no, it wasn't that bad. I stopped. Suddenly, I remembered what I heard from Kazama and Amagiri before I left Kyoto. What they told me about my father. Perhaps if I asked him, he would tell me the truth, but I was scared. We stood there in awkward silence for several moments before he finally spoke.
Chizuru, while you were in Kyoto, did you meet anyone who claimed to be a demon?
He couldn't have known. Yes, I did. There were 3 men who called themselves demons. Their names were Kazama, Amagiri, and Shiranui. Oh, and there was a woman named Sen, too.
I see. Then one of them might have told you. I'm not your real father.
I froze, stunned. The man I'd always called father. Wasn't my father at all?
But even if you weren't my real daughter, I've always thought of you as such. In fact, I raised you as more than a daughter, I suppose you could say.
Then suddenly, the warmth in his voice was gone. I felt his hand tense and I looked up. His face. He was no longer the father I'd known.
You see, you're going to be Lord Kazama's wife. You're important to me because you'll be providing him with children so that he can bring strength back to the demon clans.
So your plan was to pimp me out. What? Kazama's wife? Had he just referred to me as Kazama's wife? I thought I'd been talking to my father, but this man seemed like a complete stranger. Had my father ever worn such a horrifying grin before?
A great war will soon consume this country. The Tokugawa shogunate will be swept away, and chaos and disorder will rule Japan. While these foolish humans slaughter one another, we demons will take back what is rightfully ours. This is your true purpose, Chizuru.
His eyes brimming with red-rimmed insanity bore into my own. Through my growing fear, something in the back of my mind spoke up. "Where have you been?" My heart thudded in my ears. His mouth twisted into a wider grin, and he laughed.
You haven't guessed. I was taking shelter under the wing of the domain. Who will rule this country in place of the Tokugawa shogunate, the Satsuma?
A chill ran down my spine, and I took an involuntary step away from him. He wasn't my father. He wore his face, but something had changed him. I didn't know what, but he was no longer the man who'd raised me.
Now, come with me, become Lord Kazuma's wife, and help us found a brave new world.
No, never! I shoved him away from me and ran. I had to escape. What had corrupted my father was a mystery, but I could see quite clearly that he wouldn't listen to reason. If I could just make it back to the Shinsengumi.
There you are, Chizuru. Did I really raise you to be this disobedient?
How? Only moments before he'd been inside, but now suddenly he was standing in front of me.
Time to correct that oversight then. Disobedient children must be punished.
His eyes began to glow with a golden light. No!
Now come with me, Chizuru. We're going to help Lord Kazuma make a new world.
On his head were the same terrible horns I'd seen on Amagiri. Why? My mind was reeling. What was going on? Nothing made sense.
Do the horns bother you? Yes, I'm sure they do. I do have some demon blood, but it's much thinner than Lord Kazuma's or yours. In fact, I was so close to being human that I might as well not have been a demon at all. But thanks to the water of life, the strength of my demon blood has increased 100-fold.
The water of life? No, you mean you're... He had turned himself into a fury, using the very water of life that he'd created?
Let's go, Chizuru. Lord Kazuma and his paradise are waiting.
The demon who'd once been my father wrapped his too strong hand around my wrist. No! I tried desperately to shake him off, but to no avail. What was he going to do to me? Is Saito going to rescue me? This was wrong. I needed to get away.
Chizuru, get down.
That voice. I ducked, and not a moment too soon. From where my head had been a moment before, I heard the hideous wet noise of a sword striking a body. I saw a look of surprise appear on Kodo's face, and he slowly turned around to face his attacker. There stood... I knew it!
Why did you leave without permission?
Because I'm foolish. I'm a foolish, foolish woman. Saito, how did you find me?
Where else in Edo would you run off to?
He gave me a glare, then turned to Kodo. His hand tightened on his sword hilt.
Stay back. I'm going to fight Kodo.
But...
Just be quiet and stay back.
His voice was hard and quick, and it was clear he had little patience for me at the moment. I took several steps back. Was he going to be okay? Saito was now a fury, and it was the middle of the day. Wasn't he in pain?
This was a powerful emotional moment. The long-awaited reunion of a father and his beloved daughter. It was awfully rude of you to interrupt like that.
He sighed and reached into his sleeve. Metal glinted as he removed his hand, and I saw that he was holding a pair of metal scalpels. An evil smile split his face.
Very well. You'll be given a chance to test my newfound strength.
Suddenly, there were 8 knives in each hand, and they were all flying towards Saito. He deflected the tiny knives with the flat of his blade, then leapt forward and brought it down toward Kodo. Cuts opened on his body, and blood spurted forth. I covered my eyes, unable to watch. No matter what he'd become, the man Saito was fighting still had the face and voice of the father who'd raised me. But he was a fury now, and though he stumbled, he didn't fall, and his wounds quickly closed themselves.
Phew, that was close. If I hadn't drunk the water of life, then I'd be dead.
If that is the extent of your so-called strength, you would be wise to back down.
Even if Kodo had become a fury, his training was in medicine, not warfare. He couldn't possibly fight Saito. Nonetheless, it seemed he had no intention of giving up.
Back down? Hilarious. One day the whole world will kneel at my feet. What do I have to fear from a mere human?
Not a mere human, a fury! His body shook with an insane cackle, and he let fly another cloud of knives.
Idiot.
Again, Saito deflected them with his blade. One of his own knives ricocheted off Saito's sword to bury itself in Koto's chest. A gout of blood spurted out. Saito grimaced, and his face went pale as Koto's blood touched him. He had scarcely moved during the fight, but suddenly his breathing was fast and heavy, and I could see beads of sweat forming on his forehead.
Oh, something wrong? Starting to get tired already, I see.
No, it's the bloodlust.
You don't seem the type to get exhausted so quickly, though. Ah, well, I think I understand.
His smile was cruel. He'd been fine until the blood had touched him. That had to mean...
I see now. You've become a fury as well.
None of Koto's knives had touched him, and yet Saito's face was contorted in pain.
How do you feel right now? The bloodlust must be driving you mad. Am I wrong? How do you feel when you walk through town and see all those people so defenseless, their veins full of warm, fresh, delicious blood?
His breath had turned ragged, but he stumbled backward, trying to put distance between himself and Koto. The smell of the blood was overpowering, and I could see both his body and will were slowly weakening. His sword was still firmly in hand, but I could see the tip begin to wave and shake. It was painfully clear that he was in no state to fight Koto.
What's the matter? You were so full of energy a minute ago.
He smiled, his mouth full of teeth, and thrust his knives at Saito. Being a fury, his wounds began to heal almost immediately, but... the blood coming from his own wounds seemed to only intensify his pain, but he remained on his feet and lifted a trembling arm to point his sword at Koto. Being out in the sun had to be painful enough, but this... where did this incredible force of will come from? There was something beautiful and horrific about watching a man keep his broken body upright with nothing more than determination.
That wasn't very wise of you. Drinking the water of life does horrible things to a human. Your bodies are more fragile than ours. Yes, the water of life will grant you some measure of power, for a time, but it will eat at your mind until there's nothing left. Eventually you'll become a mindless beast who thinks only of violence and bloodshed. I'm surprised you would choose that path. There's nothing for you there apart from misery and death. How foolish.
Oh no! I didn't want to believe him. It couldn't be true. But if it was, what was going to happen to Saito? Would he really become a monster?
You see, horribly sad. Are you devastated? You have drunk the water of life. You'll never again be human, and you will never find peace.
Saito met Koto's gaze, his face deathly pale.
I have never looked for peace. In battle, there is only kill or be killed. If I had wanted a life of peace, then I would never have taken hold of a sword.
Acting tough, are you? Very well, we'll see how long that lasts.
A new set of knives appeared in his hands. How many knives does he have? Well, this happened before.
Stop. What?
He stopped, frozen. That voice, I'd heard it before. How many times have I said that?
Koto, what are you doing here? I believe you were given strict orders not to act on your own. Lord Amagiri, you must return immediately. If the other demons discover you've been here, there will be trouble. But this man has become a fury. If we don't deal with him now, he'll cause problems for us later. I'm sure of it.
Amagiri's face didn't move.
I have orders from the Satsuma domain to return with you. But I will not say this again. It is time to go.
His eyes flicked to Saito, and his voice dropped even lower.
In any event, this man will soon destroy himself. Though whether it'll be his human side or his fury side that ends him, I do not know. And Koto, if Kazuma should learn that you've done anything unnecessary to the girl, he is not as forgiving as I am.
He glared up at Amagiri, his jaw working furiously, but said nothing. Amagiri gave us a fraction of a nod, and then both of them disappeared. Saito sagged with relief and slid his sword back into its scabbard. Saito, are you alright? He turned to me with as much of a frown as I'd ever seen on him.
Oh, be fine. Now explain. Why did you leave without permission?
Well,
If I hadn't come after you, and if Kazuma had been here, then you would have been captured. Why do you think I stay awake during the day? The sun isn't pleasant for a fury, you know.
His tone was so harsh, I felt myself instinctively backing away. I'm sorry for putting you through so much trouble.
I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking for you to explain yourself.
I hesitated. Did I really want to tell him? I came here to do some research for suppressing the bloodlust.
Why? Did Sun order you to do that? To someone else?
No, that's not it. You just looked like you weren't feeling good, so I wanted to try and do something to make you feel better. Saito looked taken aback, as if the idea that someone would be concerned about his welfare had never even occurred to him.
I never said that I wasn't feeling well.
It seemed an especially ironic thing for him to say when his face had about as much color as fresh snow. What about just now, when my father's blood got all over you? You looked horrible. He frowned.
Even if I am feeling less than healthy, what does that have to do with you?
I love you! It has everything to do with me. It's my fault that you even became a fury. But Saito didn't respond. Instead, he glanced around the street, then squared his shoulders and spoke.
I've left headquarters unattended. You're done here, yes? We should return.
No, I only just got here. I still need to look for notes. Oh, I actually wasn't done. I hadn't even started, but I caused enough trouble for Saito already, so I simply nodded and followed him off down the street. We'd only walked a few feet when... He groaned and doubled over in pain. Saito, what's the matter? Bloodlust. His face was strained, and his jaw was tight.
It's nothing. I just need a moment. It'll pass.
His breath was coming in painful gasps. It was most certainly not nothing. He was beginning to sweat profusely, and his hands clawed desperately at his body. There was only one explanation. You want blood, don't you? This is the bloodlust. He said nothing, only clutched at his chest, his face twisted with pain in a way I'd never seen before. What was I going to do? For the first inning we need to make him endure it.
Don't make something out of nothing. This will pass soon enough.
He glared and shoved me back. The agony on his face made my heart feel as if it was about to break in two. I wanted to do something, anything for him, but he would never let me. No matter how much pain he was in, Saito would demand to endure it alone. All I could do was stand and watch. Shimada met us as we walked back into the mansion.
Oh, hello Saito, Yukimura. Where did you go?
I wasn't sure how we should respond, but Saito spoke up before I had a chance to open my mouth.
She had some urgent business that needed attending to, so we stepped out for a moment. There seems to be a commotion inside. Did something happen?
Kondo's about to start a meeting, so he sent some people to round up all the captains.
I see. Very well.
By the time we reached the main hall, Kondo and Hijikata were already there, surrounded by the rest of the leaders of the Shinsengumi. Kondo was grinning, clearly pleased about something. Which other people will not be so pleased about?
Alright, I think this should be everyone. Let's get started. Now, I'm sure you're all curious about the next battle against the Imperial Army. Well, it's going to be Kofu. Specifically, Kofu Castle. Hijikata, can you brief them on the details? We'll be going to Kofu to tell them Yoshinobu intends to cooperate with the Imperial Army. We'll be there to protect Kofu from anyone who tries to start trouble. At least, that's what it'll look like.
He turned to look at Kondo expectantly.
Our true purpose, however, will be to attack the men from the Imperial Army stationed in the area. If we manage to clear them out and secure Kofu, then the shogunate will grant the castle to us. To me, this is an enormous opportunity.
You shouldn't have added the me part. That makes you sound egomaniacal.
Oh yes, there's one more thing I have to tell you.
He crossed his arms and grinned out at the rest of the room. Clearly, he was waiting for someone in the room to ask him what he had to tell them. I'd seen him do it before, but it was still rather childish.
What is it? If you got something to say, just spit it out. You are so impatient, Nagakura. You'll never be able to handle working at the castle with an attitude like that.
He laughed, then cleared his throat and looked out across the room with a stern gaze.
Along with this mission, I've been given a new title. I now Executive Lieutenant Minister. You're looking at a daimyo. A daimyo! And on top of that, they've given me a new name, Tsuyoshi Okubo. Isn't that a wonderful masculine name?
There was no mistaking the meaning behind the huge grin that split Kondo's face as he talked, but the captains, Nagakura especially, didn't seem particularly happy. He looked as if he just tasted something bitter.
Now then, I want all of you to prepare to set out for Kofu immediately. This will be our chance to show the shogunate our skill, so I hope you'll all do a great job. I have high hopes for this mission. Today's meeting is dismissed.
With one last grin to all of us, Kondo turned and practically skipped out of the room. He must be awfully excited to be a daimyo. I don't think I've ever seen Kondo like this before.
Well, he started out as the master of a very small dojo.
He feels like this title means that all his hard work is finally being recognized. Of course he's going to be excited.
He said that if he wins the battle, then he'll be given Kofu Castle by the shogunate. If that really happens, then what about you guys? Will you be his retainers or something? Saito looked silently down at the ground.
I do not belong in a castle beneath a lord. I'm a killer, not a retainer.
His eyes were pitch black. I realized then that I didn't know why Saito would join the Shinsengumi in the first place. I'd known him for so long, but I knew very little about him. Unfortunately, I was certain that if I asked him, he'd refuse to tell me anything.
What the hell is going on in that head of his? I don't remember ever telling Kondo I had any intention of being his bitch. So he's a daimyo now. Big deal. The guy needs to get over himself.
If this was 40, even 30 years ago, things might have been different, but these days a title from the shogunate doesn't mean squat.
Nagakura and Harada continued to grumble as Saito watched silently. A war was about to begin, but it didn't seem like the Shinsengumi was ready. Chapter 6. February 1868. And right there, we might as well end the video and continue on in the next episode. Well, we're definitely in the meat of Saito's story now. I hope to hear about his past soon. There was that period of time where he left the Shinsengumi, and I really want to know what happened during that period of time. Hopefully we'll find that out soon. Alright, hope to see you in my next video or some of my other ones, and I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye bye everybody.